And we welcome you to Dodger Poke Report, where tonight we have a very, very, very special guest, pitcher in the Dodgers organization. Robbie Peto joins Dodger Poke. Robbie, I want to thank you so much for joining me this evening for a conversation.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to it.
Man, just looking into your background, what a cool story you have. One grandpa became a Dodgers fan because they were in Brooklyn and he grew to love the Dodgers. From that perspective, another grandpa played all the way up to AAA. Your dad played college baseball at Rutgers. So, man, what a bloodline of baseball you have in your family, huh?
Yeah, there's definitely a pretty strong influence on me growing up in that aspect. My dad was my coach growing up, and being able to have him as a resource, someone who played college baseball at the Division I level. It was just really awesome, and it was really good for me to have someone in my ear who kind of had been through that process. And then, my other grandpa, one of my grandpas played up to AAA with the Yankees after playing college at Seton Hall. And that was way back when. And he tells me stories all the time about, the money that he made and stuff. So it's pretty fun to hear that. But definitely.
Watch out about all that way back when stuff, huh? Man, that must have been really cool growing up in the New Brunswick, New Jersey area and going to Monroe Township High School, where you were the school's winningest all-time pitcher on the mound, huh?
I think so. I don't know if someone broke it yet.
At least you were whenever you graduated. Yeah, you were an all-stater 3 different times. You were the second-ranked pitcher coming out of New Brunswick in 2016. Just a fantastic career there for the Falcons. So talk about your high school career.
Yeah, my high school career, it's still something I look back on to this day, and I miss playing with those guys. Fortunately for me, most of my team in high school was kind of like that same close group of guys that I played with all growing up. Like I said before, my dad was my coach growing up, and pretty much our whole starting lineup on my travel team when I was younger all ended up playing together in high school. So lifelong friends, and obviously having a good program at Monroe. It was just awesome to be able to take the field every day with, the guys that I still consider, a lot of them my brothers to this day. So that was awesome. It's still something that I think about to this day.
Is high school baseball in New Jersey pretty competitive?
It is. I think it gets a bad rep, but there's definitely some really good talent up there.
Okay, so here we go. You get drafted twice before you actually decide to go pro. So the first time right after high school, 30th round by the Angels. You choose to turn that down. Of course, you had an uncle that had an in at North Carolina, actually worked for Dean Smith. Is that correct? So you end up turning down the 30th round draft pick choice, and then you end up going to North Carolina baseball power and playing for the Tar Heels.
Yeah, so I committed to UNC after my sophomore year, and I actually grew up a pretty diehard Tar Heel basketball fan. So I'd always just loved the school, loved the colors. And my uncle, when I was really young, it might have even actually been before I was born, he worked for the Dean Smith radio show when he was getting his grad degree at ECU, I think. He was into sports broadcasting, so there was that connection there. And a lot of my family just kind of all grew up rooting for UNC. So that was my dream school. So when I got that offer, it was an easy decision for me to commit. Obviously, it didn't work out the way that I had hoped to, but before that, I ended up getting drafted my senior year. I had turned down some money early on. I was pretty high rated, I guess, as a senior that year in the draft. And I had that opportunity given to me, but I just thought I didn't think that I was ready mentally or physically for the pro ball level at the time. And it just seemed to me like going to college and getting my degree was something that would benefit me, and hopefully I'd still have that chance. Luckily I did after college to still play professionally.
When you had a lot of opportunities, even after North Carolina, of course, you transferred to State College of Florida in Bradenton, Florida. And I don't know if people are aware of this, but it's one of the most renowned junior colleges as far as baseball goes. Talk about the decision to go JUCO to Bradenton, Florida, to the State College of Florida, and play for the powerhouse.
Yeah. Once I had kind of known that I was probably going to be leaving UNC, I had started to kind of look around at the junior college level. I didn't want to go to another D1 and sit out for a
Mm-hmm.
year. And my advisor at the time, he had a good relationship with the junior college. They'd sent a couple guys there before. There was actually a kid there who was at UNC the year before me, who ended up also transferring to State College of Florida. So they had a good relationship. The pitching coach there, Don Robinson, was a 15-year big leaguer, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was looking forward to learning from him. And it just kind of seemed like the right fit. I wanted to be in Florida. I wanted to be somewhere warm. And I knew that's where, it was a really high recruiting state for junior college baseball. So I loved my time there. Getting to learn from Donnie was awesome. I unfortunately got hurt when I was there, but yeah, I love junior college. It was. I definitely think I made the right choice with where I went, and yeah, I look back on a lot of those days. JUCO is a grind. They're right about that, but
Yeah.
It's awesome at the same time.
Now, have you had the chance to talk to the High A Great Lakes manager, Austin Chubb? I do believe he went to the exact same junior college.
Yeah, he did. I met him last year at spring training, but I haven't really gotten to talk to him much besides that. But hopefully when he gets here, I will.
You must have liked that warm, and baseball, I must say, is a much better sport when it's not cold outside. Of course, it's 16 degrees right now in Oklahoma, so that's not very good. So you decide to stay in Florida, and you end up at Stetson, a place I'm very familiar with because the year before you got to Stetson in 2018, my beloved Oklahoma State Cowboys were beat out in the regional that they got to host the year before that you got there at Stetson. So you decide to go to Stetson. Talk about that decision.
Yeah, it was another kind of thing at the time where my advisor had a relationship. Logan Gilbert from Stetson, who threw really well for them in that regional, ended up going in the first round with the same agency. So there was that relationship there with the pitching coach. I think one of my agents actually might have drafted the pitching coach when he played. So there was a good, healthy relationship there. I looked into the program a lot. Obviously, Jacob DeGrom and Corey Kluber, went there. So that was pretty cool to see. And I, at the time, after being at UNC, my JUCO decision committing somewhere was easier because I'd already kind of gone through the D1 process. I knew what I was looking for. And, Stetson basically told me, they were like, look, we need someone to come in and replace Gilbert and be a guy for us. And so, I had easily been able to tell that they wanted me to come there and they wanted me to pitch and really help them out. So just seeing the team really invest in me like that was big for me, and it made my decision pretty easy.
And you increased your draft stock by 6 rounds. You get drafted after your first year at Stetson. Then you turned that down again. I believe that was after your redshirt sophomore year, draft eligible sophomore year, redshirt sophomore year. You come back to Stetson for your redshirt junior year in 2020. You have 4 starts. You're combined to throw a no-hitter against Florida State with a couple of other pitchers, and you have a great start. You defeated Ohio State in your last start against their best pitcher. So you had a great start to 2020. The season gets canceled, and then after turning down the draft twice, you choose to go into the draft on a year to where there's only 5 rounds. So that seems odd, but take us through that decision.
Yeah. So I had decided to go back to Stetson for my second year. I felt that I had a decent showing there my first year, and I was a little bit young for my grade. So I kind of recognized that I could go back to school for one more year, and it probably wouldn't hurt my draft stock too much. And so, I'd rehabbed and trained all that off season and went back and was feeling really good and gotten off to a really hot, quick start. And then COVID happened and didn't really know what was going to happen. At first, they were saying the draft was going to be 10 rounds. And when I heard that, I thought that I should be safe to get picked because I had known that I'd shown enough that year, and people had known me from the year before and years prior. So I was feeling okay with that. And then when they said it was going to be 5 rounds, I knew that it was probably going to be, I could have been on that grasp of like that 5th, 6th round. So the draft, it was a pretty tense couple hours for me on that last day. And I'd gotten some calls, talked to a bunch of teams, but ultimately didn't go picked. And then there was I believe it was like a 3-day waiting period before teams could sign free agents. And I had known at that time that, it was now or never for me to go pro. I couldn't turn it down again.
Sure.
And then go back to school and see what would happen. So when free agency had started, my phone had started to blow up a little bit, and I'd started to hear from a lot of teams. And there was a bunch of different reasons why I had already wanted to sign with the Dodgers prior to even being recruited by them, pretty much. But they just, compared to all the other teams that I talked to, they just had all these plans laid out, and they showed me all the ways that they invest in their players, and it's pretty easy to tell why they're so successful year in and year out. And it's, it starts down here at the minor league level, like the people that they have here, just developing us day in and day out. It's awesome. Like, I truly feel like I'm learning each day, which is it's a huge thing, because that's what this level is all about. So it just felt like the right fit for me. I knew that they were the best organization, and it might be tougher to, move up and things like that. But I know that the minor leagues is all about development, and I figured that, why not go with the team who's got the most success at developing players year in and year out. And it just became really easy for me and really eye-opening. And ultimately, that's why I chose them as soon as I could.
So you signed with the Dodgers as an undrafted free agent. The projections were you were going to be probably if the draft got extended, probably a 7th round draft pick, maybe an 8th round draft pick, somewhere in there. So man, unfortunate break. It was only 5 draft picks because you had to sign at slot value as an undrafted free agent instead of as maybe a 7th or 8th round draft pick type money. But having said that, people might look at that and go, well, he could have had money. He got drafted 2 times. He came back, then didn't get drafted. So I want to make this very, very clear. When you actually do the math of coming back to Stetson, getting an extra year of education at an awesome university like you did, which cost about $70,000 a year, and then you sign as an undrafted free agent for the slot value that you would have signed at the year before, you signed for maybe about $5,000 less than you would have. But then at the same time, you got a year's worth of education, which values at about $70,000. So then also you got to pick your own organization, which you got to choose the Dodgers. So in the end, really, when you do the math, it actually worked out in your favor. I know you did not get the 7th or 8th round draft pick type money, but coming back definitely, even from a math perspective, certainly worked out for you.
Yeah, that was a big thing that I had talked to my parents a lot about when I had decided to go back for that second year at Stetson. Was, they were like, if you're going back for another year, you better get your degree. And I was about 2 classes short. So I actually took 2 classes that summer to get on pace, and then was able to, to finish my degree that year. So that definitely was a big bonus about going back and being able to have that, just in case baseball doesn't work out. So
signing with the Dodgers was super exciting. It was also something that was very important to you. I know you had a very close friend that you went to the University of North Carolina with, also transferred to the State College of Florida with. I'm going to let you pronounce his name because it has a spelling. The last name has a spelling. I would prefer that you pronounce his name. Can you go ahead and do that?
Yeah, Zach Adenisi.
Adenisi. Okay, so you guys are very good friends. You play baseball together. The Dodgers actually show interest in possibly signing him in 2018. And then tragically, after he commits to Florida State, him and his dad are killed in a car accident in Michigan. So you decide to wait till the 2-year anniversary of that tragedy to sign with the Dodgers. Talk about how special that was for you.
Yeah, no, that was, like I said before, there was a lot of sentiment in my signing with the Dodgers, and that played a huge role. So I had actually met, Zach lived in the town over from me, in Monroe. He lived in Old Bridge, so it was about 15 minutes away. I met him after my freshman year of high school. We were playing in an all-star game together. He was already committed to North Carolina. He was like the top-rated pitcher in the country after our freshman year of high school. So we became close in high school, went to UNC together. We were together every single day, had that Jersey connection between us. And then both of us didn't really work out at UNC like we had hoped. And I had committed to SCF. And then when he had told me that he was looking, I had reached out to the coach at State College, and I had said, we got this stud from UNC. I grew up playing with him. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever met, competitive. And so they talked to him. He ended up committing too. We were roommates there. And, again, spent every day together. When I was, getting a little work done on my back and I couldn't drive back, like he'd come pick me up. But we were best friends. We were boys. And then, he has like the year of his life in JUCO. He was like one of the state pitchers of the year, commits to FSU. And then, that summer, I think me and him came home about 2 weeks before. And then him and his dad were driving to a funeral for the mom's brother who had passed away that week. And they were killed in an accident. So that was tough for me that summer. That was right before I went back. That was right before I went to Stetson. So, there was a lot of sentiment there, and I decided to wear his number at Stetson, 49. I wear a chain every day that's got his number on it. I don't know if you can see it.
Fantastic.
On the back. And I always write a little something on the back of the mound before I go out there. So he holds a strong place in my heart, and, I know he's with me every day. He was a huge Kershaw fan, lefty. So, emulated Kershaw, wanted to be just like him, loved the Dodgers. And so that kind of made it all more special for me. And then when I saw that date was coming around, I had known that I kind of wanted to do that. So I still keep in touch with his family and his sisters to this day. And he was the best.
That is fantastic that you hold those great memories. Not fantastic that the tragedy happened, obviously, but fantastic that you have been able to honor him and his name and all of those things with your baseball playing career and by signing on the 2-year anniversary. So let's back up just a touch. 2020, you sign as an undrafted free agent, and then the minor league season gets canceled, and then New Jersey is a complete hotspot for COVID. So where all did you work out? What did you do during that time period?
Yeah, it was tough. They were putting different restrictions on Jersey every day. The cases just kind of kept going up and up. Me and my family were actually in a rental house at the time because we were just moving. My parents had bought a place down by the beach. And so we were in this tiny little rental house, all of us kind of squeezed in there, and none of the gyms were open. Mm-hmm. Nothing was open. There were lines out of every store there, people rushing and panicking to get stuff because no one really knew what was going to happen. And so I actually had to play catch with my little brother sometimes. I had to throw with my dad, which he hates doing now that, I'm older and throw harder, and he's older. But there was nothing open. I was doing workouts like outside. I was, just going for runs, doing whatever I could in the little backyard that I had, and just trying to just keep myself busy. We had a Peloton, so I was hammering the Peloton a little bit. So just to kind of keep my legs in shape as best as I could. But yeah, it was tough. It was like that for a long time in Jersey. I actually ended up coming out here to Arizona later on in that summer and working out here for about a month or two, which was great because I needed to just, be in a gym and be around people who kind of knew what I needed. So
I bet that was a breath of fresh air to get back out to Arizona, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Except when I came out here, it was about 120 degrees, and I was not used to that.
So what's worse, playing when it's 20 degrees or 120 degrees?
20 degrees for sure. Yeah. I remember pitching in a scrimmage my senior year of high school. And I was facing off against two other kids who were high draft prospects that year. And it was a scrimmage in March, and there was about, 30, 40 scouts there. And I was so cold. It was 18 degrees, and my hands were almost bleeding on the mound from how cold it was. It's just so miserable to play baseball in that weather.
It's miserable to do anything in that weather.
It really is.
Hey, by the way, before we move on, I got to say I love that hoodie. That is a absolutely fantastic hoodie. The LA Los Angeles Dodgers baseball, and it fits just perfectly on the screen. So I wanted to compliment you on that. That's an awesome looking hoodie there. So you mentioned So you mentioned you went to Arizona during the 2020 part of the COVID deal. You got a breath of fresh air there. You got to work out a little bit. So we mentioned that of course, the lockout is going on right now, but that does not affect minor leaguers. So is it just schedule as normal for you?
I don't know, to be sure. To the best of my knowledge, I believe so. I think most minor leaguers within the next week all report to camp, and I think everything kind of proceeds as normal. I don't know that to be completely 100% honest with you, but I'm pretty sure that's kind of how it is. I don't think their bargaining agreement has anything to do with us.
So you're just in Arizona, you're at the complex, you have the normal schedules, just like it would be normal spring training for you, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's at least a good deal for the minor leaguers to get to prepare. I know the major leaguers say that they need at least 4 weeks to get ready for the regular season. So I think Monday might be the cutoff as far as they have to get started if they don't want to delay the season itself. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the case. So at least the minor leaguers are getting to do their thing, and that's very exciting for me because that's what I cover anyways, being in Oklahoma with Tulsa and Oklahoma City, and then I like to cover Great Lakes as well. So let's get to your stuff, the meat and potatoes. I have not seen you pitch in person. I cannot wait till you get to AA Tulsa so I can see you in person, but seen you on video quite a bit. You have the big fastball that's anywhere from 94 to 96. And I'll tell you what, let's start with that pitch because that's quite a pitch. With that the right effect that you're able to get. I mean, I know a baseball can't actually physically rise from a pitcher off of a mound throwing downhill, but my goodness, if I didn't know that from a scientific perspective, I sure would think it could, because your four seam up in the zone is pretty devastating.
Thank you. Yeah, that seems to be kind of the trend that baseball is headed in right now with that fastball that, it looks like it's riding. I guess metrically, my fastball with how low I kind of release the ball, and the vertical break that I do get on it does kind of have that effect. So that's something that I had no idea about until I got with the Dodgers. I didn't know anything. I couldn't tell you about vertical break, horizontal.
Oh, really?
I couldn't have told you. My pitching coach at Stetson was pretty old school, so we didn't use much technology. It was more kind of just hands-on pitching stuff every day. But being able to have this technology here that they have, it's a huge asset. I mean, now I know things about myself and about how I can approach how I attack hitters just based off what it looks like coming out of my hand. So yeah, the fastball up in the zone is something that I've had success with, and it's something that I really gotta nail, because I've seen how much success I can have with it. So if I can keep kind of pounding that and really get the command of that, I think the better for me it is.
So has the metrics actually changed the way you pitch, or is it just explained to you why you're successful?
No, I wouldn't say it changed the way I pitch. Maybe the way I throw certain pitches and certain counts. But it's just kind of an idea of, I guess, what your ball is doing. So maybe for me, if I know that, my fastball has that effect, when I'm ahead in the count, I'll maybe talk to the catcher about targeting up a little bit more and giving me, a visual to try to look at. Because I know that, with the way I throw it, it's probably going to go up a little higher than that.
Sure.
So, it's just knowing small stuff like that, about all your different pitches and the unique things that they kind of do really helps you, kind of formulate a game plan.
I've been meaning to ask one of the pitchers that I've gotten a chance to talk to, and I think you'd be the perfect guy because I think you'd be able to answer this question, but coming into metrics for the first time and seeing the spin rate and how that fastball up in the zone is something that you need to not only just go for a strikeout pitch, but just consistently to get swing and miss. Is that scary, knowing that if you miss by a couple of inches, the ball's probably going to be a home run? Is that kind of a fear that you have to get over?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you got to go into pitching with no fear anyways. And, I know just growing up from baseball, once they started throwing curveballs, I couldn't hit. So I know how hard hitting is. So, I think it really just comes down to execution. If you're able to execute that pitch, 7 out of 10 times, you're probably going to get away with it, even if you do miss, just because how hard hitting is. So yeah, it's, I think it definitely, is in the back of your mind sometimes that if you miss, it might get hit, but that's baseball. So, it's
Sure.
just about moving on to the next pitch and trying everything you can do to execute when you gotta.
Let's move on to another plus pitch that you have, and that is your changeup. And man, that thing, when that thing goes right, it has a lot of what I call fade to the arm side, a lot of tumble that drops straight down. So you have the fastball that kind of gives the perception of going up. You have the changeup that gives the effect of going down. Then you have the arm side, what I call fade. And then you have, I don't know what, if you call it a slider or a curveball, what you call it, but it's kind of in between. At least sometimes it looks like it has more 12-6 movement. Sometimes it looks like it has more slider movement to it. So you have every shape that you could possibly need in a pitch. So talk about your changeup and then your off-speed pitch.
Yeah, my changeup, I'd say, is probably over the last few years become my favorite pitch to throw. I gotta give, I guess, some of the credit to Greg Maddux, because I was one day watching a video on YouTube, and it was him talking about his changeup, and just where he put different pressure on the ball with what fingers, and his approach on throwing it. I really listened to which fingers that he had put pressure on. And I started just drill it every day when I was throwing it, and just kind of releasing it straight down and just letting the ball in the grip do the work. And that's when my changeup became, an out pitch for me and a plus pitch for me to use after watching that and really developing it like that. So yeah, it's got that that fade to it, and I actually like it a little bit more when it's got less fade to it, and it looks more like a four-seam fastball. But that fade to lefties really does become beneficial, because even if I don't get the swing and miss on it, the way it's moving is, I'll be able to get a rollover ground ball on it. So that's definitely one of my favorite pitches to throw, right or left. I gained a lot of confidence with it last year, throwing it to righties, which was big for me because it was pretty new. And then, yeah, my curveball, it's I throw it a couple different ways in different counts. I think it looks probably more 12-6 when I'm early on in the count and I'm trying to throw it in there for a strike. And then, one thing I'm still trying to drill to this day is, the 0-2 one, throwing it in the dirt, where the best spot to throw it is, and try to land it. I like to try to throw it on top of home plate, and hopefully that'll, that late dive down to it, we'll get that swing and miss. So, it's got two different shapes to it at times. And right now I'm trying to really nail throwing an actual slider, because I think something with a little bit shorter of a break and going a different direction, kind of just having, each pitch go to one different spot, I think, it would open up my arsenal a lot more. So the slider, I would say, is in the works right now. And, the changeup and the curveball, it's just, consistent daily work to try to really, sharpen and define them.
I would have to imagine having a grandpa that played AAA baseball, a dad that played college baseball. Some of the earliest lessons that you learned as far as being a good baseball player was that you have to take care of all of your activities off the field and be a good human being first, learn the process of how to get prepared, how to handle failure, how to do all those things before you ever handle any of the physical parts of baseball. So for all those kids out there that might be pretty talented, that think they might have the talent to be a college baseball player, that think they might have the talent to be a professional player, what lessons have you learned, and what advice would you give them to maximize all the things off of the field to get in the position that you're in?
Yeah. There's definitely a lot that goes into it mentally and physically, but I would say mentally way more. Like you said, dealing with failure, that's something that, me for sure, and I'm sure a lot of players are still learning to deal with. I had a lot of points last year during the season where, I just felt lost and I didn't know what I was doing and how to kind of get out of the funk that I was in. But, being able to deal with that failure and just recognize that this game is built on failure, and it's such a process and a long one to really kind of make you into the player you are. But, like you said, off the field, staying out of trouble, doing well in school, like that was one thing. I got in a little trouble when I was growing up, and, when I got to high school, I realized that, if this was something I wanted to do, I didn't just have to be a good player. I had to be a good person. I had to stay out of trouble. I had to do the right thing off the field. And so it was definitely just a big learning thing. And like you said, having my dad and my grandpa, to this day, one of my favorite quotes, my grandpa used to just drill it in my head when I was younger, but, learn to listen, listen to learn. And, that quote stuck with me always because, there's things every day in life that you have to learn, in this game especially. So being able to listen to people and listen to what they say and give them a chance and be open to criticism or coaching or whatever, that only helps you grow. So just being able to take in and different things from people, being able to deal with that failure and work on it and recognize that it is part of this process. I think once you put those together, which it's very hard to do, that'll set you up for success, building on those foundations.
Learn to listen and listen to learn. I have never heard that in my life. And I promise you, Robbie Peto, I am going to steal that because that is awesome. I love that. That is great advice that you got from some great human beings. So well, before we wrap this up, and I appreciate, I've taken a lot of your time, so I certainly appreciate you giving me this much of your time, but you spent last year in low A, Rancho Cucamonga. I would assume that you're going to start this year in high A Great Lakes. Have they told you that? Is that kind of what you're assuming?
They haven't told us anything yet. I'm, hopefully, that's the situation, and I'd be happy to go there and start there. But, just they haven't told us anything yet. So, I don't want to assume anything, but, I'm just hoping for the best.
Sure, absolutely. Robbie Peto, I cannot thank you enough for coming on Dodger Poke Report. You have an awesome story, and I can tell everybody out there, all the Dodgers fan, this guy is absolutely legit. That forcing him up in the zone, that curveball that he has, and that just wicked changeup that he brings to the mound with him every time is big time. So I appreciate you coming on. Best of luck. You have a huge fan at Dodger Poke Report, and I wish you the best of it. I can't wait to see you in Double-A Tulsa.
Thanks. I can't wait to get there. Appreciate you having me on.